Reimagining the youth as peace builders requires us to reimagine our own understanding of peace. We live in a time where peace is no longer just defined as the absence of war or conflict or violence. I have learned from a young boy from the conflict areas in Pikit, North Cotabato, that peace can mean being able to go to school. Or as I have learned from a woman from Datu Odin Sinsuat in Maguindanao, that it can mean not worrying if her husband would be able to go home that night. Another teenage girl from Phnom Penh said that peace is being able to play with her friends out in the field, while a student leader from Jakarta told me that peace can be defined as being able to worship in a mosque. Another youth leader from Yangon told me that peace is being able to access basic healthcare services. In many parts of the world, the youth are often seen as a special group that should be shielded or protected from conflicts and violence in our societies. This view often puts the youth at an unequal, often othered perspective. What we need to understand is that the youth are stakeholders with valid interests, and we need to recognize and accept that they are equal constituents who can and must be engaged on a level platform as another interest group. In discussions on peace building, we need to listen to the perspective of the youth, and we need to understand their own experiences of conflict, injustice, and violence. These experiences would define how the youth would act, move, and work for peace. If we disregard these voices, we might not be able to move towards a peace that would be for their future, and we might create a gap in our peace work. The youth are the missing link in peace building. Wait, no, let me rephrase that. The youth are the link that we fail to include in the bigger picture of peace work. Why? Well, existing power structures in many areas of our society often put the youth on a lower, less important level. Older generations expect us to know what we need to do with our future. But most of the time, we are not given the chance to participate in the very discussions that affect our future. In fact, we are merely the recipients of the consequences of the actions of generations that came before us. Yet the other generations hate the attitude of young people. When you think about it, the youth are the ones fighting the wars and the battles that older people, older generations have started. You got us into this problem. At least give us the chance to help you solve them. So this is where we need to reimagine the meaning of peace so we can reimagine the role of youth in peace building. Peace work is no longer just about safekeeping missions or armed combat or diplomatic engagements between state leaders. At this day and age, peace work should leverage on the value, the very important value of human connection. Our cycle and the many cycle of violence will not end if we do not build human connections that bring compassion, understanding, and care for the other. The wars that we keep fighting will not end unless we see the other, unless we see each one of us as interconnected. That whatever happens to a young person in Ukraine will affect another young person in the Philippines, or Canada, or Spain, or Israel, or Kenya. All over the world, we have witnessed young people leading movements and coalitions to advance inclusive peace and sustainable development. Today's generation of youth, which is the largest that the world has ever witnessed, is equipped with resources and is empowered to take actions to transform the future of humanity. The youth today are more connected than any other generation that has walked on earth. As young people, we have in our hands the tools that connect us to anyone in the world. We can get information on what is happening, whether that would be in Beirut, or Baghdad, or Tunis, or Paris, or Tokyo, or New York. This access to social media and the internet has made us aware of social injustices, armed conflicts, and human rights abuses. These issues which have been destroying our common humanity long before all of us were born. Our use of social networks has allowed us to connect to our friends from different parts of the world and has allowed us to learn about issues from varied perspectives. Now, this connectivity and access to a wealth of information has created a generation that is socially aware human-centered, and empowered to act towards positive, transformative change. The youth's varied perspectives can help address not just the challenges of physical violence, but all of us can also address the issues that are brought about by structural and systemic violence. The youth have the values and the motivation to turn oppressive structures into participatory and inclusive ones. The youth can help promote and move people towards behavioral changes that can bring lasting peace. The youth can and are positive agents of peace, and that youth participation is an essential component of successful peace building. There are countless ways on how the youth can be agents of peace, but we need to first understand what peace means and that this may differ to each and every one of us. If peace means being able to go to school, then engage the youth towards inclusive education. If it means being able to worship in mosques or churches or temples, empower the youth towards defending the freedom of religion and belief. If it means having access to health care or timely crisis response, mobilize the youth through humanitarian work. I personally have witnessed how the involvement of youth action can lead to sustainable peace. In the southern region of the Philippines, the people of Mindanao have suffered from decades of armed conflicts. As part of our contributions to building peace in the region, we provided psychosocial services to the youth to heal the trauma from the war and to end the cycle of violence. These youth were also trained on how to build networks and coalitions who will work together towards supporting their fellow youth and their communities. Apart from healing their emotional wounds, we also educated them on the value of peace and harmony. With their new knowledge, they themselves went into their friends, schools, families, and communities and shared what they have learned. In their own ways, they were able to transform a culture of vengeance to a culture of forgiveness. They changed their community from one that sees the other as an enemy to a community that welcomes the other. The youth are great community organizers, resourceful planners, and innovative implementers. During this pandemic, I have also witnessed how young people have taken the lead to help those people who have been severely affected by this public health crisis. Many young people volunteered to cook food and feed those who went hungry. Some used their own money and their resources to provide health and sanitation kits to poor families. There are also those youth who form groups so they can educate their communities regarding the coronavirus and how they can be protected. I have witnessed young people calling for a ceasefire as we all rise up from this crisis. It was the youth who took actions to reach out to the most vulnerable in our communities. Our awareness and our connectivity helped us have a clearer vision of what peace should be and what it should mean. We have the tools, we have the numbers, we have platforms on social media, in our schools, and in many organizations that have now given the youth their seats on the table. Let us use that. Let us raise our voices and use our knowledge to educate the other generations. Let us amplify the voices of those who are oppressed, the religious minorities, the migrants, the poor, and those who have been forgotten by our society. Let us work towards making sure that in our future, the better and more peaceful future that we all envision and dream of, no one is left behind. Now is the time for us to act. And as we build a world post-pandemic, may we young people recognize that our role begins today. For if we do not act now, we may not be able to act or even exist in the future. We may be young, but we are not too young not to be involved. I have personally witnessed the energy of my fellow youth leaders and their eagerness to act. Their energy is contagious, their passion inspiring. We are more aware, we have ideas to address issues, bringing with us learnings from the past, while at the same time staying relevant to the changing landscape of our society. So what can you do? Start with yourself. Ask yourself, what have you been doing to promote peace? Have you been an instrument of peace with others, like your family or friends? Or are you one of those people who have incited hate through speech or through deeds? After reflecting on that, ask yourself, what else can you do for peace? It does not have to be big. You can always start small. Educate the neighbor who has been abusing your neighbor because they are different in race or religion. Call out the friend who spreads hate through social media. Defend your classmate who has been bullied for their beliefs. When you can, reach out to organizations who can help you come up with projects or programs for peace. Partner with them. Form your own groups and coalitions. And as you work for peace, remember to find allies and friends who will join your cause. Do not antagonize those who oppose you, but work towards inspiring them and transforming their beliefs. Write letters to your legislators and politicians. Ask them to ensure the protection of human rights and to end policies that does not reflect the common good and the common values of our humanity. Join various causes which can contribute on, and so many more things that you can do. There's so much opportunity for the youth to engage. Now, what if there are no opportunities? Well, that's the time for us to create those opportunities, for when we come together, we can do so much more. The youth are not the enemy of the older generations. We are your partners. Across the globe, young people are taking steps to be involved in peace work. And in various cities, young people are leading the way because we feel that our lives are in danger. It is the future of the youth that must be considered when making decisions that would affect their lives and their future. Diversity of ideas must also recognize the equally important ideas of the youth. To those who were young ones, please think about the future of your children and their children. While the youth may soon take the lead, it is in your hands and your power to ensure that they get involved now, when it is needed the most. What can you do to support the youth in their role for peace building? Well, for starters, please create safe spaces where the youth can be engaged in political processes and in decisions that affect our future. Let the youth voice be heard and support their actions and recommendations. In involving the youth, you will not just get their fresh ideas, you can also get their trust with their leaders back. Start with the safe spaces of youth involvement in your own homes and communities. Second, support their education and capacity building towards peace and sustainable development. Share your wisdom. Facilitate dialogue between youth communities and even engage in intergenerational dialogues and exchanges. Giving the youth access to education and information can strengthen their involvement in peace-building efforts. Integrate peace education in our curriculum and organize training programs for the youth. Third, recognize the work of the youth. We are not here as your competitors. We are here to support the work that you do. Partner with the youth, scale up their projects and programs. Support them and fund these programs. And more importantly, protect these projects and our freedom to do these works for peace. Our generation is not your threat. We are your future. There is this building momentum for youth's active role in transforming our future. So invest in this momentum and build on it. We are here. We are ready. We have the energy. It is time to start recognizing the youth's important role in sustaining peace. Let us admit, many of the problems that we face today have been passed on to us or have been caused by the generations past. Some of us may no longer be around to hear or see the judgment of future generations on the actions that we take today. But may we keep in our hearts that our accountability goes beyond today's society. We are accountable to all of humanity and all of life on earth, to those before us, and more importantly, to the generations after us. Thank you very much, and may peace be upon you all.